as and when, and there's plenty of time for questions anyway. So really, it's been a busy month for us all, hasn't it? Really, a busy couple of months for us all. But there's been some really key announcements for policing, which impact on both Darlington, obviously, and the wider force area. And I'm really delighted to say that the force, unlike our sort of times in the past, it has been looked upon favourably for the recent pots of funding as far as the external investment is concerned. And we'll soon be in receipt of substantial extra funding. That's a positive. On the negative, it isn't mainstream. It's short-term funding to address certain things, but going forward, you know, there'll be a big hole, isn't it, if you put this resource in? What's going to happen at the end of the 2-year period? So you might have seen that the force, the constabulary, is being chosen as a pilot to implement the new antisocial behaviour action plan. And if anybody's seen this, and I was quite horrified when I was reading it, that Durham was highlighted as an area of significant concern, as was Cleveland and Derbyshire. However, that's a positive thing, because I had to ask the question, how's Durham in the scheme of all the 43 forces being identified for that? But it looks like it's the Crime Survey of England and Wales, and the people who've responded has influenced the government decision to give us almost, if next year is agreed, 2.4 million this year and 2.4 million next year, around, you know, and that's what they used to identify where the problem hotspots were. So I have to thank everybody from who responded to that, because we've got some much needed funding to address antisocial behaviour. So really, we've also got, as well as the hotspots and the rapid justice, we've also been told we're getting £1.4 million for Safer Streets 5. And similar to those other projects I've just mentioned, the strange thing is we're actually getting the money. We've more or less been saying you will get that money, but we will need you to apply for it after, just to confirm the spend. Now, that 1.4 million for Safer Streets, surprisingly, every police area, PCC, will get 1.4. So again, that weighs in Durham's favour, because Merseyside, the Met, Northumbria get the same amount of money. So Durham, being a smaller force area, we can hopefully do more with that funding than some of the other areas where they wouldn't even be sort of dipping the toe in the ocean sort of thing. So that's a really good one. So if we start with the antisocial behaviour, we are one of 16 trailblazer forces to receive the money over 2 years for hotspot policing, and that will be with patrols and hotspot patrols, and also a new immediate justice to tackle antisocial behaviour. This funding amounts to, let's say, over a couple of £1 million over the next year, and I expect the additional funding for the project, similar funding, will be for next year as well. Now, the hotspot is enabled to get people out there, ideally in the uniform, so that's your police, PCSOs, specials, fire, wardens. It does include diversionary activities, so if we do, unfortunate to have any youth workers, that could be part of the deployment as well within the area. So it's really excellent news for Durham. And as you know, we have prioritised ASB since coming into office, and it is the public's top priority. So this is really welcome funding. On the rapid justice, it's about getting perpetrators dealt with robustly and swiftly, and see the community to see visible action taken by the police to deter antisocial behaviour. And this will happen under a new scheme. As you can imagine, antisocial behaviour is not evenly spread across the communities, and a handful of persistent offenders can cause a disproportionate problem. And we've seen that the same problems can recur at the same location time and time again. The benefit of the hotspot enforcement approach is it allows the resources to be targeted in the areas of high demand, thus maximising the impact in the communities. And one of the things which is, I think, is welcome is that if we put more of a presence in hotspot locations, I expect community confidence to increase, and that means that people feel more confident to report crime if they feel they're going to get a response. The government accepts this, and they're expecting to see antisocial behaviour sort of going up in those areas that we're targeting. But the true measure will be how people feel. Do you feel safer? Do you feel less fearful? And there'll be work going on around our communities to see how the impact of the interventions in the community, and we tapping into that community intelligence as we go forward. So we've now identified a range of areas within Darlington and the Force area, looking at the areas of to focus antisocial behaviour hotspots. The first patrols got underway at the start of the month to coincide with Antisocial Behaviour Awareness Week, and that's something that I'm really pleased that Darlington probably lead on this across the Force area. They're really across the neighbourhood teams, with council officers, with partners, they really get out there in that week to raise awareness of what people are doing, how you can report and have opportunities to engage. And I know that went down really well this month as well. We expect this to intensify over the coming weeks and months, and the aim is to increase the speed at which residents can be dealt with and deter other offenders from causing similar problems. And the partners have come up with some really good ideas within the project. And over the next updates, I'll update you onto some of these things as they come into fruition. At the minute, the government wants its money spending quite quickly. So that means that the majority of the hotspots police and the visible presence will be paid through by overtime, because you can start that straight away. It's just obviously a lot of our officers are stretched because of capacity within the neighbourhood team. So hopefully there's an appetite to do more, but also we'll be looking to bring other people in as we go forward. So the next one is the immediate justice will be rolled out. This will involve, as I mentioned, the perpetrators of antisocial behaviour being made to repair the damage they inflict upon the victims and the communities very quickly after being handed out of court disposal by the police. The emphasis here is on visible justice, and for this reason will take place in the heart of the community in full view of the public. This could include litter picking, graffiti cleaning, gardening of communal foul beds, washing cars. Perpetrators will also wear high-vis vests or jump, sort of high-vis clothing. And I think this is any of us who have been involved in Bloom or neighbourhoods, we tend to wear that anyway, just as a safety issue. One of the things I've asked for is in relation to unpaid work with the probation service, if we can link in with Bloom groups across the areas that we can get the work done, where we can plant bulbs in the positive aspects in our communities, and use that to support existing schemes and hopefully get people into that sort of line of work and helping around the community. We're looking to mobilise the scheme and have partners and services that are already equipped to deliver on the work, and there are also other services in development. My office is working closely with probation, youth justice, housing, health services and local authorities to design and implement these solutions by, from Durham's perspective, adopting a problem-solving partnership approach. So these will coincide with the introduction of increased fines as well, that you'll have seen for graffiti, fly tipping and littering, other aspects that's been contained within the Antisocial Behaviour Action Plan. Anyone now caught fly tipping could face up to a maximum £1,000 instead of £400. while the maximum fine for those caught for litter or graffiti will increase from £150 to £500. Receipts from fines will also be ring-fenced to further enforcement and clean-up activities. I'm keen to invest this work back into the community, including funding for high streets, street cleaning, green spaces and CCTV. I'd previously, in the last couple of weeks, funded mobile, it's like covert CCTV for fly tipping in Durham. And I've recently spoken to Amanda and I've suggested, and Graham, to say that's something that Darlington would like to pursue. I'm happy to fund the covert CCTVs. And sometimes it looks like a Coke. I mean, Darlington might be different, but in Durham it looks like a Coke can. It looks like discarded litter anyway. But it's been really successful in identifying perpetrators for fly tipping and actually taking them to court and get significant fines. The other thing that we've got to report on is the Don't Suffer in Silence campaign. We funded a media campaign to help take a stand against antisocial behaviour. I think this is something that was run in Darlington, and I think there was a bus campaign. I thought it's a good one. It's a key one that anybody who's suffering from antisocial behaviour shouldn't suffer in silence, because there is help out there to address some of these things. So the most recent thing that we've done is advertised in the bus shelters across County Durham and Darlington, and we're also promoting the. I've seen in Darlington, just by the roundabout, your big screen is regularly pushing that out as well, around Don't Suffer in Silence. There's help out there. We've got a QR code that I appreciate not everybody uses it, but it's for those that do with a mobile phone. It takes people straight onto the website where they can access the relevant support to report antisocial behaviour, whether to the police, the council or housing. So it's a good deal of work has taken place to get us there. And one of the key complaints that the community tell me, and obviously members also raise it, is who do I report what to? So this is part of one of the areas in the work that we're doing, and that will be followed through by a leaflet that, again, in the areas we can get that out, so we can let people know who to call for what, and the key contact numbers as well, and also help and support out there. This is also to address some of the concerns that we have about the number and the volume of calls coming into the 101 centre, which is a lot of it's inappropriate. It's not for the police, but they're not really sure who to ring. So we're trying to signpost people to the right agency at the right time to take some of that demand away from our call centre. And I think it's a key part. It's what the public have asked us to say, tell me, signpost me. So we're getting that out over the next couple of weeks. As you know, we've also got the antisocial behaviour champions being quite instrumental in getting us to an antisocial behaviour case review signed off, both for County Durham and Darlington. And this is how we can deal with. There was something called previously called a community trigger, which was very underused, and I think people weren't sure how to report it and how it was addressed. So now it's renamed nationally as an ASB case review, and it sets out a system so that residents can understand their rights, but also members can understand what it's all about. We've got in development. We've got a booklet that it sort of sets out the various stages and who to call for what. So that'll be electronically, but we'll have some hard copies, and I'll make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get one, because I think I carry this around with me, and it's only the draft all the time, so it's useful to get out and say, right, take you through this approach. This is how it works in practice. It is very early days, but there's a few cases gone through, and hopefully we'll learn as we're going through the system. So I think it's, rather than telling people to fill out diary sheets for forever and ever. That this is a bit more of a quick, rapid response to anybody who's got persistent antisocial behaviour. So it does help residents know the rights, where to complain if they're not happy about how the case has been answered, and request a multi-agency case review that's sort of overseen by an independent chair. One of the biggest emphasis is placed on the impact of antisocial behaviour, which we've, again, out of 43 PCCs, for 2 years we've been banging on about antisocial behaviour as being the key thing that the government and the Home Office need to address. We've actually got this now, and even more recently, the HMIC FRS inspector has said, neighbourhood policing and ASB, that the chiefs need to start listening to the communities and obviously the PCCs, as this is a priority. But they do get priorities, to address the homicide, the violence against women and girls, etc. But the good thing is that now we are getting funding, we're getting the spotlight on antisocial behaviour, and the Prime Minister's actually took it as one of the things that he's taken responsibility for. So with that, and also with our shadow team, it's a really good place to be, because we've got a shadow cabinet, and we've got a government all wanting to deliver on what the public want, and the public, let's say, across England and Wales, want everybody to tackle and address antisocial behaviour. And I think from my side, I said we want a gold standard of service for victims of antisocial behaviour. It can be a living nightmare, and it's a clear referral route available on the website, and the signposting is really critical to that, so people understand it. So I'd welcome your feedback on that, and how we can improve the messaging going forward. So fine, on the safer streets, similar theme that I've touched upon that. It's looking around areas of neighbourhood crime, antisocial behaviour and violence against women and girls. It could be one of those things, a number of those things, but we have to come up with ideas to spend that money, and the money has to be spent by March 2025. So my office has been linking in with partners to pull together detailed proposals of how and when the additional resources will be invested. But the expectation is that I'll run 3 projects under Safer Streets to the value of between 300 and 500k per proposal. But they do ask for match funding, so that's where there's a bit of an issue of how you get that. But it can be in kind. We cannot use existing funding to extend, so there'll be an issue there about the hub and number 40, how we continue that and develop that, and invest in that area, which has been quite critical for the work that you're doing within Darlington around the violence against women and girls and the nighttime economy. The proposals have to be set in August 29th, which is, it's quite tight deadlines, especially when it's over holiday period, but we will be aiming to get our bids and proposals in by then. So I think that will take us forward with the funding. As I mentioned, number 40 is a key on the agenda. Some really fantastic work being going on within the hub. It was originally funded by Safer Streets, and it continues to proactively address violence against women and girls. I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity, but I've had a night in there, and it's well worth just seeing how and what happens, and the conversations even with the volunteers. If nothing does happen, there's a lot to learn, and the great thing is it is getting people who want to support that. The hub is open Fridays and Saturdays between 9 and 3, and it's staffed by at least 2 volunteers as well as door staff. Every evening, at least 2 City Safe volunteer medics are on duty. They've managed to recruit 30 dedicated volunteers, and due to the success, the partnership has launched a new arm that you'll be aware of. It's number 40 Street Friends, and these are volunteers are trained in City Safe, nighttime economy, vulnerability and first aid. and they're contactable by radios linked to CCTV and door staff and mobile phones for those who need it. Since opening in September 2022, number 40 has recorded 334 incidents. An incident can involve people dropping in to charge a mobile phone, to victims of crime needing help or requiring assistance. Between September 2022 and April 23, 14 potential ambulance incidents were recorded, and it's estimated that number 40 has saved approximately £11,000 in ambulance charges alone from these incidents. The majority of them, 29%, are categorised as prevention. This is where a person has been prevented from coming to harm with the provision of essentials such as phone charging facilities and flip-flops. The night I was in, there was somebody who came in, must have been about 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, to say thank you to the staff. He said, I'm saying I think you could have saved my life, because if you hadn't sent me to hospital, if I'd have gone home, I would have been unconscious. He thought he'd been spiked, and they sent him to hospital, and when he got to hospital he collapsed, and wasn't aware of what actually he had taken, but he thought just by actually sending him to hospital rather than home, he got the help that he needed. I was also in there when they brought a potential spiking victim into the area. It was a door staff. Senior doorman brought a lady who he knew very well, and he said, she's acting out of character. I know this lady well. I'm really concerned about her. She was tested and she had cannabis and cocaine in her system. And the doorman had an idea of who it was, where he was concerned, he was suspicious, and the police arrived, did the test, and then took action and took the evidence away. So that was two, in my experience. So that's an idea of some of the things that come through that door. They don't know what's coming through the door, but it's fantastic that you've got the premises where you've got them, and also the amazing volunteers that help make it such a success. There's a great sense of community spirit in there, and there's been an appeal, a really well responded appeal for knitted blankets, and we've got a knitting group, and local residents often drop by with donations and resources for treats for the volunteers who, like say, give their time into the early hours of the morning. So that's sort of the things from my office. There is things around off-road bikes, but I know that there's a meeting coming up. If anybody wants to, I'll stop there and I can come back if we've got time on anything else, if that's okay with everyone.
Thanks, Joy. Councillor Allen has been waiting very patiently, I think for a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. So over to yourself, Councillor Allen.
Thank you very much. I've got 3 questions regarding ASB. The first one was immediate, which is why my hand went straight up, which was who will actually decide how to identify the ASB and where the hotspots are? Who is going to be responsible for that? Right.
Do you want to ask all the questions and then I can come back?
Yeah, that is fine. My second, I mean, you don't have to answer me now. If you want to sort of email me later, that's fine. Yeah. My second one was regarding, you mentioned extra policing. Mm-hmm. What does that actually mean? Because by extra policing, a lot of people will automatically assume you mean more police officers. Now, at the moment, we've got fantastic teams of PCSOs. They're absolutely brilliant, but they are completely hogtied because they don't have powers of arrest. Yeah. They also are hogtied because they're still expected to go into quite harmful situations, and they have no protective gear whatsoever. Yeah. So it's either we get more police officers, or we allow and we train up our PCSOs to a higher level, and we give them the protection that they need, and we give them the powers of arrest. And finally, you mentioned about the reparations. I was one of the first tranche of people who underwent the restorative justice training under Mr. Hogg. Brilliant. It was absolutely lovely. And I did actually work with some very nice people. And some of the youths were mortified, etc. But who exactly will oversee them doing the reparations? Because that, again, if it's sort of graffiti or vandalism per se, then they're going to need an authoritative body to oversee that they do it properly. That is not necessarily going to be cost effective. So are we thinking of putting any more training into the schools? I know our PCSOs go into the schools. I don't know how effective they are. I know the parents all love them. The adults all love our PCSOs, but I don't know how effective they are regarding ASB issues. So right. They were my three. Thank you very much.
Okay, lovely. I'll do it. I'll summarise it, but I know Sweetie's taken notes, so we'll give you a fuller version on email if that's okay. So the hotspots, we've got two ways of identifying the hotspots. One is the dots on the map. That's for people who've rang in and recorded it. But we all know, as a previous councillor myself, some areas there might be low confidence to report crime. So when you get funding in, it's not necessarily the areas we think where the money should go, because we haven't got the evidence to say there's a problem. But our local officers, our local members, our local, the agencies will think that is a problem, but it's not shown up as a problem, but there is a problem. And an example of that would be off-road bikes, very low, as in I had to that can't be right. But the reports coming in are low. But because we know it's a big issue in our communities, in police officers, PCSOs, it'll be a priority. So it's a mixture of, you've got your hotspots, which you'll identify where what we know that's out there at the moment, but then got your local intelligence as well to drive it into certain areas. And an example would be in some areas you might have the antisocial behaviour isn't the same, but perceptions and fear is higher. So an example would be something like a village where a lot of people are affected by it, a lot of people know it, compared to an area where it's more significant and severe. But perception-wise, the residents are really concerned, and probably more residents are concerned in that area than in another area as well. So going forward, I think it is very much about using that local intelligence to inform our work, and then how we do this. It's a bit of everything, and I mentioned it could be mixture of all those people, because they all work together and they all sit around a table, they all look at what they're going to do. So if you can get the PCSOs, the police officers, the wardens, the specials, the cadets focusing in on an aerial and also the fire service, a part of that work as well. Police officers get paid overtime, PCSOs don't, they get paid time, and then because it's like a directive within the union. It's something that it's difficult, but we've seen with the the hub, we put overtime in there to help support it and to have that response. In relation to PCSOs, we've got, I think they do a lot of work in our communities, a lot of work, I would say, around antisocial behaviour. And it's very much around understanding each of the communities and to try and design, how you design out crime. We're even looking at the preventative side. How do we design out antisocial behaviour? Is it lighting? Is it CCTV? Is it diversionary activities? Is it something that's open on a night time? So it isn't just about targeting the area, it's actually understanding what the causes are and putting interventions in place. The good thing, and I hadn't mentioned it, but you'll have seen, because we've been doing this uplift, all the priority that the force has been given is about recruiting police officers to fill the vacancies. But over the last couple of months, now that we've got the uplift figures to our maximum, what is funded, they've gone out for the special constables. So they've just been recently recruiting for special constables, and it was oversubscribed. So there was a lot of interest out there to become a special within Durham. And I spoke to Steve Curran, who sort of manages the specials, the superintendent, and he said, I think they had 45, they had 65 applicants and 45 are down to interview, with the way expectation that there'll be 30 people trained at the back end of this year and out on the streets in January. Now, they have got police powers, they have got a warrant card, and they have got the powers of arrest. So the specials, I've got lots of expectations for the specials, and I would like to increase that, because we at one time, I don't know if you remember, Sweetie, was it 120 we had?
Yeah,
was it 120 specials. So imagine it,
yeah,
on the key times of the days and the week. We've got 24 at the moment. So there's an opportunity of where we haven't got the funding to recruit full-time officers. If we can recruit more specials in the community, that will be better, because that will give us a real resource in the communities to support our neighbourhood teams, but also PCSOs. In relation to the response and the rapid justice, I think in Darlington, the youth justice team's been working very, very creatively and working with people, even the people who wouldn't necessarily come into them, like it's at a really early stage. So we're working closely with them in Darlington and Durham, with a way to designing something that will work, knowing the areas and the young people that they're dealing with, how we can do that appropriately and well. And I think in Darlington, I have to say that the youth justice is very progressive. Despite sort of funding, they work really, really well with young people at an early stage. And I think Gladstone Street is a pillar, a beacon of really how you should do, how in an ideal world, how you would do things. So you've got your police, your PCSOs, your youth justice service, you've got wardens, trade and standards, environmental health, you name it, they're in Gladstone Street and they talk really, really well. And you've got a police officer obviously based in the youth justice team, and that network is just, it's priceless for just sharing information and working with the same people in certain areas. So I take on board, what you were saying about, the training. I think that is absolutely, there's opportunities there. It's to build on the success that you've already got, know the people, and I think again in Darlington, the focus, people know who the young people are, who are at risk of offending, and it's using this as a positive way to engage with it, but also to give the confidence to the public that they'll do something about it. So that's a sort of a summary, Councillor Allen, but we'll give you a little bit more meat that will obviously take a little bit more time to do, but just to give you that reassurance that those areas are being addressed.
That's lovely. At least, it gives us something to tell our residents when they're either just having a moan or if we think they're being a bit unreasonable. It's nice to have something a little bit more concrete, or even to say this is what's going to happen in the future. This is, there's funding for this to happen and it will take time. At least it will give the public a bit more reassurance too.
And what I'd like to do, and it may come down the line because it's early days yet, but I'm really keen to get out into the hotspot areas and do some door knocking. So there'll be opportunities there if members want to do that with me, to explain what a hotspot is and antisocial behaviour. I can let you know when I'm in the area, and I intend to go out with a leaflet that can explain how you report antisocial, the importance of reporting it, etc. This is what we're doing, because not everybody picks things up, and not everybody's going to see a police officer when they're in their area. So I do intend to go out and about in those areas and talk to people. And I mentioned about we've got the engagement plan that's been very, very popular. We're just in the start of it, so again, members can pull us in, even if they're not in a hotspot area, to say, can you come and be at this event, and we will, where the diary allows, we can be there.
Just ask for PCSO Murray. He'll tell you where they are in North Road and Northgate and Harrogate Hill, because him and his team, they patrol all 3 wards, which are up North Road from the town centre upwards on the left as you're coming up.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Is that local intelligence?
We'll like to see. If you want to pop in, you can have a cup of tea.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for that. I'll definitely take you up on that one. Councillor Kerry?
I'm just going to be reporting a little bit back from my daughter, who is security, and she does the Dolphin Centre, and there's regularly a gang of young people, she believes from the traveller community, that comes in, and you can't send them anywhere because they don't know where to go and what to do. We seem to have a problem of, and I don't think it's just traveller children, I think there'll be a group of young people whose parents chuck them out the house and say, off you go and enjoy yourselves, and they don't know what to do and where to go. I know it's not a police responsibility, but is there something that the police can help advise? Where's a safe place for them to be, and maybe we can get some community people to putting on events for them and that. They all come to the town centre, you see. They just come to the town centre because that's where things are happening. They don't go to the local parks. Yeah.
And I think that's part of it, that intelligence. We just need, obviously, the teams to work together. And I think part of this funding is to have affordable activities for young people, because you can have loads of activities, but if you have to pay to get into them, you've got a lot of people congregating on where the activities are happening, just that they can't access them because of some financial barriers. Sometimes there's been exclusions, but I think, we've lost so much youth work over the years, and now, honestly, the amount of meetings I go to, that people are desperate for youth workers and they're not there. We've lost a lot of people. So for me, I would love these young people to be trained to become youth workers, because they're the people who've got that lived experience. They're relatively young themselves, and the diverting. So we've seen with I was just at the Cadet Awards the other night, and they're training them into youth work as well as part of the apprenticeship. So I would love to see more of our young people trained to become youth workers, because there is a big to meet demand. There isn't enough of them to do it, and I think it's such a good. I think it's just not recognised as much as what it could have been until you pull the plug and you don't have them. Then you realise what they did. So that would be part of the plan going forward, Councillor Kerry.
Yeah, because if they've got nothing to do, they'll wander and just cause mischief, and that upsets communities around them. And as I say, that at the moment there's a lot going on, that kids are getting moved on from the town centre out into the communities, and that's where the problems are going to be, especially during the summer holidays. Yeah,
I'll take that on board, and we'll feed back on.
I'll pass that on. I'll pass that on to the neighbourhood inspector as well, Councillor Gorry.
Councillor Holroyd.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions. The first is actually on behalf of Councillor Henderson from Harrogate Hill Ward, who couldn't make it to this meeting, and she said, I don't know if there was more to discuss. It was particularly about off-road bikes.
Yeah.
And she'd been to a meeting about it, her recent PACT meeting, and they said that they've sent her an email with all the details of what they're trying to do to address them. But the fact that that drones would help to be able to follow people when obviously they go off road, and also you get around this issue of the police chase, and that obviously we saw the issues in where was it, Cardiff recently with a police chase that ended pretty disastrous, well, possible police chase, shall we say, that ended pretty disastrously. But there was an issue about funding for drones. and training funding for training so that officers were able to use them. And if that was something, you mentioned some funding for ASB that had to be spent quite quickly, that might be a potential place to spend it. And the second question, well, just a brief point to raise, actually. I tried to go to the West End, the Cockerton PACT meeting recently, and nobody turned up. So I don't know if the information on the website was wrong, but if that could be looked into, please, it would be very good. If I mean, obviously sometimes the PCSOs can't make it, but it would be very good to put a note on the website, and also to inform. I mean, it's at Elmridge Church, so if, you know, even if you don't know if the members of the public or councillors might turn up, if they could be let know if it's not happening, that would be good, so they don't have to stand at the door for, you know, 20 minutes waiting to see if someone's going to come. My other point was antisocial behaviour around driving offences. We're getting lots of issues in the narrow roads of College Ward, Stanhope Road South particularly. We've had somebody who says his vehicle has been hit twice as a hit and run, and he'll come to his car in the morning and find scrapes all down the side. But it's, I mean, that's one of those places. I notice, I've seen the list of hotspots for ASB, and I don't know where this falls, whether it is, but it is antisocial. And, you know, it can cause a huge disruption if people then have to claim on their insurance. But also Piermont Crescent, where people are simply driving too fast, too much weight of traffic, so that they, you know, they're causing damage and speeding. And again, it's whether some work can be done with the council to see how we can try to design that out, or get some more police officers there to do speed checks more often and just discourage that antisocial driving. And yeah, if there's anything else you can suggest, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll do, I think maybe it's for our next meeting, Sweetie, if we can get a little bit of a presentation, sort of 10-15 minutes on Operation Snap. Operation Snap, I think I've mentioned it before, obviously not for new members. Operation Snap was it we introduced. It was something that I picked up on when I stood as Police and Crime Commissioner. I think we were one of the last forces to adopt it, but we've used through Council Tax Fund, and we've managed to put the resources in. Operation Snap allows motorists, cyclists, motorcyclists, horse riders, anybody, you know, even buses, vehicles, to upload footage to Operation Snap to take action against dangerous drivers, which will include antisocial behaviour drivers as well. Some cameras record when the vehicle's stationary, Councillor Holroyd, and I know it can pick up people who, you know, has an accident on a car, and also things like wing mirrors. It can pick, you know, like a car who's driving off in the direction. I've had mine since February, and personally speaking, I think they're more effective than speed cameras, because these are actually dangerous drivers who are caught doing dangerous manoeuvres. And they want to be, I think it's 70% of the information that's shared and uploaded is actionable. Whether that's seen or warned, or there's a traffic contravention, they can do something with it. And these are the people who are likely not just to cause themselves killed and seriously injured, but they can kill and seriously injure other people. So you've got things where you've got mobile phones, seat belts. You know, that I've had two where overtaken on a double white line, and then the red parts of the thing, and you're like oncoming vehicles. It also, believe it or not, picks up off-road bikes very clearly. I've had a couple on mine where they haven't got a helmet on, and they're coming straight at me and so you can actually see the faces. where you can't get your phone out quick enough to take the photographs sometimes. So in that area that you're talking about, that would be a good place to encourage people, and it is a cost, but that's something that I think I've spoke to. I did mention it to Amanda, Councillor Riley, to say there's something that we could do with council vehicles. I've talked to it about housing as well, to get these cameras in, because they're not just picking up dangerous drivers, they're picking up vulnerable people as well. We've got a lot of missing from homes, people who are vulnerable, and if we're in that area, which if you're working in that area, you are focused in that area, and you're capturing information, and it also protects the driver. So I think on the antisocial behaviour, I'm absolutely with you. On the off-road bikes, I'll just touch on that. As you mentioned, we just met this morning actually with Assistant Chief Constable Antonis about a Crime Stoppers campaign to encourage people to report. And Darlington's been very, very good at this in the past, where residents tell us where the bikes are being stored and who's driving them, rather than actually what you were saying, pursuing them. We need to know where they're stored. So having that tenancy issue, where if you've got a bike on the premises, that's your tenancies is vulnerable. We've also sent the drones. Went after an Operation Endurance in Darlington. What they tend to do is send the drones up first to find out where they are, because once they see the bikes and the cars and everything on the road, you'll find out where they're not. So the drones are very important. I think the Deputy Chief Constable has said, I think he's now looking at drones more seriously, investing in the equipment, but also the training, because you do need a pilot's licence for doing this. We've also got, and I was at NPAS, which is, I don't know, it's Air Service, isn't it? National Police Air Service. It's based at, I did ask about Teesside Airport, whether it was based there, but it's based in Newcastle. And when the helicopter goes up, the helicopter has opportunities to see what the off-road bikes as well. It can also do work around heat maps. So if there's any cannabis farms around, we can ask them to do some work around that as well. So we've got obviously the funding's important. They use long range cameras, which are very, very useful to find out again who's driving these. And you'll be pleased to know we following through on the crushing. And it may be that it is costly, but I think it's how much does it cost us to do all this work policing wise? And if we can just crush the vehicles that we seize going forward, I think until we find a solution where they're not getting the petrol, we're not getting the bikes, I think crushing is part of the solution as well. So crushing bikes is key. As a PCC, I'm a deputy lead nationally for roads policing. So we will be picking up some of the other things that's been suggested by members around legislation. So, it's getting to the point where, you have to be taxed, insured, because they could cause accidents. And if they're not insured and they're not, and they are causing accidents and sometimes seriously injuring people, that's something that we could pursue. And I think the roads legislation has been out for consultation later this year, so it's something that we can pick up with members to get some feedback around that. So I think that would be, Operation Snap, that is to get that information out there, and there's a QR code. And Sweetie, will you be able to send a QR code? I think we will be getting information out, but I've never been a fan of QR codes until I saw that and I thought, oh, that's quite good. I've got two phones. I've got a works phone and a personal phone. I've got the QR code on the works phone, and I upload my evidence on my own phone. And so I just click it on that and I'm straight through to Durham Constabulary. But what Sweetie can do is send the link to the Durham Constabulary site that you can just upload it without a QR code. But it's important for us doing that.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody? I'm just looking at been some good stuff by Councillor Toms around youth work, which I'm really keen if we can link in with that, and any ideas that we can support that we need to just drop us a line, Councillor Toms, and we have a discussion. I've got Councillor Layton. Hi.
Hi, thanks, Joy, for the report. I still see there's a lot of this, residents have got to be quite digitally competent to be able to access, because we have residents, never mind a car going past and scraping their vehicles, on Wilson Street, they get crashed into and thrown onto the pavement, and Greenbank Road and Northgate in particular. It's not just a few scrapes, it's actually very, very dangerous, some of the impacts they get. And we've had residents who've been able to use their own Ring doorbell video footage or camera footage from their own houses, but have been unable to, because they don't have the competencies, they don't have the sort of, because a lot of them are older and they have the cameras for security, but they can't follow through properly and actually download that onto the website, and have actually sort of encountered difficulties where they've been told, well, you didn't manage to put the footage on, and it's been frustrating for them, because then they have to sort of call in sort of other people or get a PCSO involved or the councillors involved just to be able to follow through on that. So I think it needs to be, I think most councillors would be happy to go and help, and I'm sure they would help with with sort of offering to fill in forms for them. But I just wondered about, you mentioned, there was an ASB review, so people can see, and you said that you had hard copies. Is it possible just to have like maybe just one or two amongst the wards, so that, we can, that would be great. And then perhaps if there's some kind of help you can give to councillors in how we can facilitate filling in forms or downloading footage for residents, because I think there's a fine line, isn't there, sort of how much you can just go in and access someone's phone or whatever. And I'm just anxious that we don't do the wrong thing, so that would be helpful. Just some guidance for how we can help people who are digitally excluded.
And I think in all that, please give us any feedback from, which I know you do, from residents about how easy the process is, how it isn't. A key part of one of the things that we do, and if you come across any victims of crime, is understanding the victim's journey, why they didn't pursue it to court, why they dropped out of court. So if you're ever speaking to anybody who's been a victim who has issues around the criminal justice system, put them in touch with me, because I want to learn from their experience, because their lived experience is really, really helpful, and we need to learn. So we know that there's a lot of people who don't actually end up in court. We know that and it's just because we've got the victims champion, who is Michael Banks, who I think a lot of Darlington members know from his previous role. But things like they cut all the courts, and Darlington's one of them, magistrates' courts, and now people have to travel. Now, if you haven't got access to transport, it costs. We're talking about cost of living crisis, and then, to go to court. And going to court, you're not necessarily going to be seen at court. It could take 5 times, because you overload the court cases. So that's 5 times you have to go. And if you've got caring responsibilities, if you're a witness, you have to have a word with your employer 5 times to go and actually try to give evidence, not to be seen. So there's a lot of things that need fixing in the criminal justice system, but we can only learn if we hear it from the victims sometimes, and there's a lot of work going on. But just if you do, and I'm sure a lot of people will speak to you, any of those experiences, speak to Joy. We've got an antisocial behaviour victims champion, we've got a crime champion, and we've got a domestic abuse survivors champion as well. So we've got 3 different types of champions where they're very keen to listen. And I get what you're saying about we need to find, like you say, everything's getting digital. I worry if anything goes wrong and we don't have money anymore, what we're going to do, because we all rely on these plastic cards, and we'd never have petrol, we'd never have no food, we'd never be able to do anything, because we've gone to this cashless society. In most places it's very limited to get money. So any ideas that you have, especially in the group, sometimes it's about engaging with with community groups. So if there's opportunities there, we can reach out and see how we can do that. And I really welcome your coming forward to say, let's train counsellors to say if we can do this, how easy it is to and it, you know, it is pretty straightforward, like from a website point of view, but it's, if you don't know how you do it, something like you said, Ring doorbell, a lot of people think they don't realise it's wireless, and you don't have to have wires and electrics and everything like that, but it is very, very effective. And the other thing that I'm looking to do as part of this is supporting the neighbourhood watch and the development. You've got, you know, Roy's fabulous and his Crime Stoppers, and if we can support the rollout of neighbourhood watch within Darlington, within the areas as a start, would be a good point as well, because I know that's something that people have asked for in the past.
Brilliant, thank you.
Anything else? I've got something about the pedal bikes. I think I've got an issue with pedal bikes and bells as well. I mean, wow, how on earth that's not in a highway code? I don't know, because I can't understand a bike and not having a bell. I think it's my time, but I think the unlit bikes, I think that's another concern, isn't it? Because part of the biggest cause of killed and seriously injured is failed to look. But I think part of that failed to look is not being able to be seen. And if you're all in the dark and you look and you don't see anything, there's an accident there waiting to happen. So I appreciate that comment as well. I'll take that on board. Councillor Allen?
On the bikes, I'm now going to refer to push bikes, pedal bikes. We've got an awful lot of pedal bikes on the pavement. We've had a report just recently. One of our residents was taking his granddaughter in town, and they came out of one of the little yards onto High Row, and a bike nearly knocked his granddaughter off her feet. What can we do? Is there something that you can help us with in how do we tackle this? What are the penalties? Who do we need to report these issues to? Because they're getting more and more prevalent. Even on the cycle paths that they're allowed on, they veer onto the walking paths. Where I've just taken my dog for a walk this morning down at 5 Arches, all round the path round the river and across the river and back down the other side. Cyclists are allowed, but they are told there is only one sign, and it tells them that they have to give way to pedestrians. They don't. They come up behind you. They don't ring their bell. They don't make you aware until they're on your shoulder and they've gone past. You know, it's I don't know how we tackle that, whether we have to start looking at it from a younger age or getting really tough with them. But they really do think that they own the pavements, because they say they're struggling with riding on the roads because there are too many cars. But that doesn't entitle them to ride their bikes on the pavements.
What we'll do on the bikes on pavements, I'll ask Sweetie to do like a briefing of what, you know, the current situation is. But I know we do bike marking quite regularly from the neighbourhood teams. I think part of, I've seen a comment about, you know, the USB lights or doing something like that could be part of an initiative, and it's that education side of it that we could look at doing. But what we need is, you know, it's that intelligence, isn't it, of how many bikes are on the pavement and where they are on the pavement and where they're coming from is an important one, and just to feed into the system so we can get an understanding of where we're going to put the focus on. If it's a certain area or a certain person, because the people, if the younger people riding the bikes, it's in a certain area. So we can maybe link in with the neighbourhood teams when we're doing that, a little bit like how you get microchipping. There might be opportunities where we can have a bike, you know, that bike safety day, and do the fitting and the education at the same time. So we can pick that up, Councillor Allen, and take it to the neighbourhood team.
Because they are a nuisance, and they're a danger to the elderly because the elderly can't hear them and they can't get out of the way. They're a danger to younger children. They're a danger to people with prams. And it is, unfortunately, and it sounds a bit ageist, but it is the younger element.
The good thing with the younger ones, if they're still in school, that's an opportunity to do the engagement. So we'll get something out to all members around that. I'm conscious of time, but I've got one councillor. Lawley, would you like to ask your question?
Oh yeah, it was just in response to the bike thing. I'm coming from a point of a cyclist. So I mean, I ride on the bike paths all the time, and one of the biggest bugbears for me as a cyclist is people not paying attention. So people with headphones on, people walk along the bike path not knowing it's a bike path. And people just in the cycling areas. I would say the town centre is a cycling area as well. So it's pedestrianised and cyclists are allowed to ride in the town centre. People need to pay attention to what's going on around. Not on High Road, but large parts of the town centre are pedestrianised as well.
Just on that, councillor,
High Road is a bike path.
Yeah. Councillor Lawley, do you use a sports cam on your helmet?
No, I don't have a camera on my bike at all, no.
Because I think that's, again, when we're looking at, these public information, you're saying caught on camera or dash, people be shocked when they realise what the cyclists have to say as well. So it's the same for horse riders. So if we can get, if you're involved in any cycle clubs or, those, we could do some engagement around that, because the more that we've got cyclists with the uploading their evidence, we can use that to do the education around cycle paths and things like that, because it's all right if we're preaching, don't really understand it, but if they actually see it and they see the near misses and how, you saw that tragic one the other day where somebody pushed somebody on a road, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you could have had that in a story, but when you see it, it's really it's shocking, isn't it, when you see camera footage of things happening before your eyes. So the more we can educate using, hopefully it's near misses and not actuals, the better. But obviously you saw that, that A1 crash, where that devastating, the lorry was on it. The lorry driver was on the mobile phone, and that one went viral with the victims' support. I think it went over. It was 2 million views. Sweetie, from there was massive. People were just so shocked at what had happened, and the impact of even the guy who was on the mobile phone that's been sent to prison is part of that education package, because that's changed his life. His actions have devastated a number of families, but they all, be it the offender or the families, want other people to learn from that. But if we didn't have the dash cam footage, it would have just been a written account. But when you see it, you just think, I just don't want to be, that is just the evidence very, very strong. So we'll put 10 minutes on for our next agenda item, and we'll bring the Roads Policing Unit to take us through. And actually, if you want a bit longer, I'm happy to, because I always have we can do a written report that I circulate beforehand, and give more time over to Operation Snap, because I think you'll be really fascinated to hear from the team. So we could even give them half an hour, and then we can have questions around that if that's what members want. Do you think it's something that you would like for our next session?
Yeah, definitely interested. I was just I was knocked off my bike by a car, just not looking where they were going. I was in full high vis gear, had the right of way on the roundabout, and they just drove straight in the back of me. Unfortunately, I didn't have a camera on my bike and it wasn't captured on CCTV, so they couldn't catch the person who did it, so they just drove off.
Yeah, and I think part of it's understanding location and things like that. That I've learned with my dash cam that just in case, depending on the light of how it's caught on the camera, it might not be as obvious, the number plate. But what Roads Policing said, well, just if you can see it, say the number, because the video records internal conversations as well. So if you say bloody, I've gone like, oh my God, what's going on there? And my voice is on the camera, so it's like, so be careful when you're internal. But you can say, the registration number, and you can, so basically you can use that. And I thought, good idea. So it's only when you miss something that you learn from each other. So we can do that. I think that's been really helpful for me. The antisocial behaviour in those areas, we'll sort of link in with the local members and have an opportunity for me to come out and meet you and look at the area, and you can walk me around it from your side, and then talk about things that we might not be aware of that's in the locality. So sweet if we can organise some walkabouts with the members in the hotspot areas. We can do that if that's okay, then we can take it forward. In those areas that aren't in the hotspot areas, we've got opportunities. So it isn't just about the hotspot areas. We can do other things from my funding. We just need to say what it is and how we want to do it. And I'm always, my door's always open to local members who might have ideas for their area. So just gone slightly over, but hopefully you found that interesting. I appreciate all the interaction and the comments, and we'll get that information that Sweetie's picked up around all members. And then if you've got any questions that come after this meeting, don't wait for the next meeting, just bang us an email, that'd be handy, or give us a ring. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.